It's the weekly show with David J. Maloney. This week, David chats with blues rock artist Steve Hill. And now, here's your host, David J. Maloney.
Welcome, everyone, to the weekly show. I'm your host, David J. Maloney. On tonight's show, we've got the next part of my interview with legendary guitarist Steve Hill. With his album Solo Recordings Volume 1, 2, and 3, and with number 2 winning him a Juno Award, he's been an absolute trailblazer in the blues world. His ability to send a wall of sound flying at his audience despite only being a one-man band is legendary, and it leaves most people with their mouths wide open at what they're witnessing. He's won Guitarist of the Year, Album of the Year, Entertainer of the Year, among many others at the Maple Blues Awards. And his new album, Hanging on a String, brings him once more to the national and international stage with his unique sound and soul. Back again after the break is none other than guitarist Steve Hill. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Now, going from your studio to Dave Grohl's 606 Studios, what was that experience like coming into a different studio on this? I mean, was it refreshing in a way? Did it free you in a way?
Oh yeah. Like I love the recording process, but I'm much more of a performer, and but I've learned, it's just like the same way that I've learned how to manage my own career and to have my own record label. It's not something that I want to do. It's something that I do in order for me to keep playing the guitar.
Yeah, it's necessity, like you said.
Exactly. I just want to play guitar, but I have to do all these other things to play guitar, So to be able to record there on, like some people may not know, but Studio 606 has that classic Neve console. Dave Grohl did a documentary on it called Sound City. Sound City is a classic studio that was opened by Keith Olsen. He did the Fleetwood Mac there. A bunch of classic records were done on that console. Appetite for Destruction, Nirvana, Nevermind. And I mean, there's so many awesome records that have been recorded on that board. And when the studio closed down, he bought it and started his own studio, Studio 606. And it's not a place where you can just rent. You need to know the Foo Fighters or somebody from the crew that works there. And Daryl works there, so that was the in. That's how I got to be able to record there, and he's got these great tape machines. The album was recorded to tape, and
so cool.
Oliver Roman, the engineer, awesome engineer there too, and a bunch of assistant engineers. And usually I'm on my own, and I have to do everything by myself, and I go mad sometimes, and by the time you get to playing, if you just spend 6 hours working on the sound and putting up the microphones, and you can't have the same energy and same focus, So that was the great thing about it, just having to play and not worry about anything, And the way I do it is I do like 2 or 3 takes, and then Daryl would say, "Okay, man, you're done." And I'd go to the lounge for an hour, and they'd do a comp, decide they would import the tape.
Which takes, merge them.
Yeah, decide which takes, import that to the computer, and then they'd do a comp. If that intro was better on take 3 and the track is actually better on take 2, you take the intro from take 3 and then you put it together in the computer. And then they'd call me in, and I do 2 or 3 vocal tracks, and they do the same thing with the vocal tracks. I was not part of that process, part of the process of deciding which take or how do you tweak the sound. That's all Daryl.
Yeah, it's great because then you have somebody else being objective, because there's a tendency, doing it yourself, to become attached to certain things that are your own ideas more so. And when it's your own idea, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the best idea from another, and somebody else has an outside perspective, And you know what? You can always collaborate or argue the point later. You know what I mean? But you at least get that other viewpoint. Did you end up crossing paths with Dave at any point, or had you met him
No,
previously? No.
no,
Okay.
no. I met Pat Smear, but Dave was not there at the time.
Got it. How did you come to land on Hanging on a String as the album title?
I had that riff, and it was one of the first riffs for the album. Actually, may have had that riff before, before the album was even thought about. And yeah, I had the riff, and then I had the house on fire thing, and I decided to do a song where each verse would be one of the times that I've escaped death. I had
Should have had one about the car wreck.
I had another car wreck 4 months before the episode in Calgary, where my actually the week after I released Dear Illusion, the album that came out before that, I was coming home from a gig and I fell asleep at the wheel, 5 minutes away from my place after, a very long day, and the car was a total wreck, but I had nothing, no injury, and it was the police, and the everybody was like, that's a miracle. And for like 24 hours, I was like, man, I'm the luckiest guy on earth. And then my father died. And it was totally unexpected. And so, like, basically a horrible year. And so that led to that song, Hanging on a String. I had the car accident, I had the house on fire. I had a plane crash in Belgium 25 years ago. In the song now, it's Germany because it rhymed, and so every verse was about one of the times that I've cheated death, and I didn't have a chorus yet, and I don't know. I worked with it. I worked with Johnny on the song, and we had the verses, and we didn't have a chorus. And then at some point, I don't know, that line came out, hanging on a string. I was like, hey, what do you think of that, hanging on a string? Okay, that works. And then I came up with the chorus, and I didn't have an album title when I recorded the album yet. I don't think I had an album title, but it seemed to fit, and it worked great as the opening track on the album, as the album title, and they were all written like separately, and there was not really a link between the songs when we wrote them, but once I had all the songs in that particular order, it seemed like there was a story there. It's the life of a musician, in 2024. It's about the state of the music industry. It's about the state of the world, with a song called World Gone Insane. But it's also about my saving grace in throughout all of that, all the bad luck and all that music. There's a lot of songs about music, and ending the album with When the Music's Over, which was Brian's idea. It was not my idea at all. He called me one day and was like, man, you should try to record When the Music's Over. And I was like, oh yeah. And I've been a fan of the Doors since I was a teenager, but I had never played it. And I did 2 takes in my studio, did a comp, sent it to him, and he was like, oh yeah, man, this is definitely on the album. And in the studio, I did 2 takes, and we had a camera crew there, 2 guys filming the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And after the second take, the guy, one of the camera guys was like, man, you must have played this song a lot. I was like, man, this is the 4th time I've ever played it. It was just like a natural fit. So, and that was Brian's idea. And having that track, and it seemed like a concept album. It seemed to, like there was another song that I had recorded, but it didn't fit in the concept, and it seemed out of place. But these 8 songs together, and I got When the Music's Over is 8 minutes long. World Gone Insane is almost 7 minutes long, and you can't have more than 41 minutes or 42 minutes at the most on an LP. So I couldn't have all the songs on the LP, but it seemed like these 8 songs together, it was like it was meant to be, like these 8 songs together in that particular order, you know.
Well, I miss the days of concept albums because now with streaming and everything else, that it appears, people put out a hodgepodge of different things for different reasons. They can put out just 3 songs, put out whatever. So to have the idea of an album that flows from beginning to end with a common theme throughout is something that I genuinely miss. And maybe it shows my age by saying I genuinely miss it. Do you have a current favorite song off the record, or is that like asking you which child is your favorite?
Yeah, it's a bit like that, but um, I'm proud of every song on the album. Um, Show You is really surprising to me. Like it's really rocking, and it's in your face. And Daryl did something in the guitar solo. He's overdriving the Neve board, putting the Neve board into overdrive on the guitar solo. So it's got that amazing distorted guitar sound that you can't get out of an amp, and it really jumps at you. It's like it's so in your face. And I really like that. I like all the stuff that Daryl did. He did a lot of stuff that I have nothing to do with, like the ending of World Gone Insane. There's a minute and a half of noises where it's basically I'm just holding a note and he's just down tuning, and there's like backwards tape effects, and like on World Gone, when the music's over, the first minute, the intro is all like backwards tape stuff, and that's all Daryl. And there's phasing, and he did like all of these. Usually now, you just press a button in the computer and that's the effect. But he really went for it old school, doing phasing and flanging and all that with tape and tape echo. And I love that. I love those sounds,
Well, and that goes to that rawness kind of that you said earlier. Even though it's produced in kind of a raw manner rather than in this digital type of way things are done now. Is there a song off this record that surprised you the most with how well it turned out? Was it Turn Out the Lights, or was it the other one you spoke of, or something else entirely?
Devil's Handyman. I'm really happy with how this one turned out. That was the last song I wrote for Dear Illusion, the album before this one. And I had recorded, it was an acoustic song, sort of a dark Johnny Cash type of thing.
Yeah.
And Brian liked it, and at some point I was like, I got to try and like a heavier version. And it seemed natural. And I'm really happy with how this one turned out. It's different. The chord progression is very different for me. And vocally, it really showcases my whole range. I sing really low and then high. And I'm really, that might be my favorite track on the album.
Do you have a favorite guitar lick or hook or tonal idea on the album? Is there something that you're like, wow, I hadn't done that before? I think that's my favorite. Or is it something that you have done a bunch, but it's your go-to?
Well, World Gone Insane is the type of thing that I haven't really done before, or hadn't done in a while, or never done as a one-man band. I never thought I'd be able to play that as a one-man band. That was the hardest one. Actually, when the first time I went to the studio, when they decided to postpone the recording, is when I was trying to record that song, and it was so hard I couldn't do it, and I guess I needed more practicing, but with the injuries, it was really hard to perform, and but it's a hard song to play, and it's got so many things in there. There's like a ballad part, there's like heavy part, and there's like a bunch of different sections. To me, that's like it reminds me of Black Sabbath, how Tony Iommi would have like a bunch of different riffs and things that you wouldn't necessarily put together, but it works, you know. And this one started as a blues song. This one started out as the bluesiest song on the album, and you know, I do demos, and then I came up with that fast part, and then Brian was like, "Oh, that's you got to that's got to be the main part of the song," you know. And I got rid of the first half of it, and then he was like, "Oh, you should come up with an instrumental intro," and I it that intro, you know, just happened. Like I was playing, and it just happened by itself. It took about 5 minutes. And I sent it to him. And that's great, you know. And then the intro became the chorus, and it was really. I worked on it for a long time, and I'm really, really happy with the result and the sound of it. The sound of it is just like it's so rock and roll, man. It's so in your face, and all the noises at the end, and yeah. Daryl did a killer job on that one.
Looking back, do you think the you from 20 years ago would recognize the you from you for today?
No.
Totally unexpected, right? So,
Yeah.
Now after all these years, is there something that you feel that you're still trying to say with your music, or maybe even with the blues more specifically?
Yeah. There's always. I feel like, you know, when I was younger, I was writing more about cliches, you know, and now it's more personal, but at the same time more universal. And I think there's a lot of things happening in this world right now that can inspire songs. And I turned 50, you know, so there's an introspection that I didn't have before. And yeah, I think there's still stuff. There's still songs to record. I'm not sure about the album as a format in 2025 and beyond that. It seems like you were mentioning earlier, people don't really do albums, or you know, like people listen to playlists now. So you can just release one track, or like I think Motley Crue released 3 tracks, and that's an EP, and that's a reason to tour. And so it's getting harder and harder to sell CDs and LPs, you know, but it's not costing less.
Well, and people love vinyl, though, has made a huge comeback. Vinyl has made a huge comeback.
It has, and I love vinyl. I collect vinyl, and I release my albums on vinyl, and the new one looks great. I'm so happy with the album cover. Also, you know, like I'm a comic book nerd. Before I played music, I was drawing. You know, I wanted to be a comic book artist, and I still collect comic books, and I read a lot of comic books. And my last 3 records, I have this guy called Rob Cannon, who's a comic book artist, and he did the album cover for this one. He did it for Dear Illusion, for Desert Trip, and for Dear Illusion, we also did a comic book, which is available on the website. And you know, that's the thing about, you know, like if you look at the classic LPs back in the day, you know, it was a lot of them. It's not just a photo and a name on it. You know, like you look at these classic Yes albums or Pink Floyd albums, and the artwork is as much a part of the product as the music. You know.
And, yeah, you had Thick as a Brick.
Yeah.
Remember, Thick as a Brick was a whole newspaper.
Yeah.
You know, Sticky Fingers by the Rolling Stones had his actual working zipper on it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, well, some of them did. And if you have that one, it's probably worth some money now. But yeah, it was great. Have you thought of, have you done the album cover art yourself using any of your drawing skills for any of your albums yet? And if not, Is that something that maybe you should give a shot?
Maybe eventually. That's something that I'd like to do. But I mean, it's a lot of work already, and um, there's like there's a guy like Rob is so much better than me at that, and the like I'm really happy with the album cover. It says it all, in one image, and it really fits with the sound of the record. It fits with the concept. Um, I'm really proud of that one.
Yeah. Where now you mentioned website earlier. Where can our listeners and viewers follow you on various social media platforms and a website they can go to? We can put it up on the screen.
I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. The website is stevehillmusic.com. You can get you can get all my merch there on stevehillmusic.com. My dates and all that, a lot of info, and that's about it. But I'm really active and I'm also on YouTube. On YouTube, you can see all the music videos, but also I got this podcast that I do called Gear Talk. And if you're into guitar stuff, like I talk about guitars, guitar pedals, guitar amps. And I think there's like 16 episodes, and I'm going to film some more in the next couple of weeks. And so, yeah, I try to be as active as I can on social media and YouTube and all of that stuff.
Steve, where can our listeners and viewers obtain their very own copies of Hanging on a String, as well as your fabulous other solo recordings?
stevehillmusic.com. You can get it on vinyl. You can get a signed vinyl, signed CD, and you can get a bunch of my other albums, T-shirts, comic books, baseball hats, toques, if you're Canadian, or beanies.
Steve, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It was awesome.
Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Hill.
You take care.
That's our show for tonight. Thank you so much for watching, and a special thanks to Steve Hill for joining us once again. Stay safe, everyone.